They say the hardest battles aren't always fought on the battlefield. Sometimes the deepest wounds come from the people who are supposed to stand beside you. My name is Captain Rachel Morgan. I lost my right leg in an IED explosion during my second tour in Afghanistan. One moment I was leading my team. The next I was waking up in a hospital bed with part of me gone forever. After months of painful rehabilitation and learning to walk again with a prosthetic, I returned to duty. Not everyone was happy to see me back, especially not Sergeant Kyle Reeves. The first time he saw me walk into the briefing room with my prosthetic leg, he smirked and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Look at that. They let anyone back. And now, hope you don't slow the rest of us down, Captain." The room went quiet. A few people laughed nervously. I felt my face burn, but I didn't say anything. I just sat down and focused on the mission. What I didn't know that day was that Sergeant Reeves would turn my return into his personal mission to prove I was no longer fit to lead. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Sergeant Reeves made it his goal to undermine me at every turn. He would make comments in front of the squad like, "Careful, don't let the captain trip over her fake leg," or "Maybe we should carry her during the next ruck march." Every joke felt like a knife. These were the same men and women I had bled with, fought with, and trusted with my life. Now some of them were laughing along with him. The worst part wasn't the physical pain of my injury. It was the emotional pain of being mocked by my own team, by people who knew exactly what I had sacrificed. I started doubting myself. Nights were the hardest. I would sit alone in my quarters, looking at my prosthetic leg, wondering if he was right. Maybe I was slowing everyone down. Maybe I didn't belong here anymore. But deep down, something inside me refused to break completely. Instead of fighting back with words, I made a silent promise to myself. I would train harder than I ever had before. While others rested, I trained. While they complained, I pushed. I worked on my strength, my balance, my endurance every single day. I turned my pain into fuel. Then came the annual Elite Squad assessment, a brutal week-long competition that tested everything: physical endurance, tactical skills, leadership, and mental toughness. Sergeant Reeves made sure everyone knew he expected me to fail. On the final day, we had a 20-mile ruck march through difficult terrain with full gear, followed by a complex tactical simulation. I could feel the eyes on me the entire time. Halfway through the march, my prosthetic started causing severe pain. Every step felt like fire, but I kept going. I refused to quit. When we reached the tactical simulation, Sergeant Reeves and his squad were already there, looking confident. The final challenge was to secure a high-value target on difficult rocky terrain while under simulated enemy fire. One by one, members of his elite squad struggled. Some slipped. Some got hit. Then it was my turn. I moved differently, slower but more calculated. I used the terrain to my advantage. I didn't rush, I adapted. And when the final target needed to be reached, I found a route no one else had considered. I completed the objective in the fastest time of the entire assessment. The entire squad went silent. The evaluator looked at the results and announced in front of everyone, "Captain Morgan has outperformed every member of Sergeant Reeves' elite squad." Sergeant Reeves stood there, stunned. The same man who had mocked my missing leg couldn't even look me in the eyes. Later that evening, he approached me alone. His voice was quiet when he said, I was wrong about you." I looked at him for a long moment and replied softly, "You weren't just wrong about me, Sergeant. You were wrong about what real strength looks like." That day taught me something I will never forget. Our scars, whether visible or invisible, do not define our worth. Sometimes the people who try to break you are the ones who end up witnessing your greatest comeback. Never let anyone's Words convince you that you are less than what you are because the strongest. Warriors aren't always the loudest. They are the ones who keep moving forward, even when the world tells them they should stop. And when they rise, they don't need to say a word. Their silence speaks louder than any insult ever could. I still remember the exact moment my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces, 30,000 feet above the ground. My name isn't important, but my story. Oh, it still echoes in my chest every time I close my eyes. I had planned the perfect anniversary trip for us, 5 years of marriage, 5 years of me giving everything I had to the man I adored. David was my world. He was the charming marketing executive who swept me off my feet with his big dreams and smooth words. I was the one who worked the long hospital shifts, paid the bills, and still found ways to make him feel like a king. For our Paris getaway, I saved for months. I booked economy for both of us, not because we were broke, but because I wanted our money to go toward beautiful dinners and memories, not just bigger seats. I thought love was about the journey, not the cabin class at the boarding gate. The air smelled of coffee and anticipation. I handed him his boarding pass with a proud little smile. Window seat, just like you wanted, babe. His face changed in an instant. His voice rose, sharp and loud enough for every stranger around us to hear. Economy. Are you serious right now? After everything I do for this family, you're dragging me into cattle class. You know how this makes me look, right? Like some ordinary guy stuck with a wife who doesn't understand status. My colleagues fly business. People are staring at. Use like we can't afford better. The words landed like slaps. My cheeks burned hot. A woman 2 seats away lowered her phone and stared. An older couple exchanged glances. I felt so small, so exposed, like the entire airport could see every insecurity I'd ever tried to hide. David, please, I whispered, my voice cracking. Not here. I thought this trip was about us, not the seats. But he leaned in closer, his tone dripping with disgust. This is embarrassing. You're embarrassing me. He snatched the pass from my hand and walked ahead without looking back. I followed him down the jet bridge, tears blurring my vision, my chest tight with humiliation. How could the man who once called me his everything turn on me so publicly? I kept telling myself it was just stress, just one bad moment. I had no idea that moment was only the beginning of everything falling apart, as we stepped onto the plane and squeezed into our economy row me by the window. Him in the middle, I forced a smile and reached for his hand. He pulled away. The engines hummed, the doors closed, and I stared out at the runway, wondering if the man beside me had ever truly left me at all, or if I had just been convenient. The flight took off, and the cabin lights dimmed. For the first hour, David said, nothing. Then the snide comments started, low at first, but each one sliced deeper. Look at this, he muttered, shifting in his narrow seat, knees jammed into the seat in front. This is what you chose for our anniversary? You really think this is romantic? I tried to keep my voice steady. We're together, David. That's what matters. He laughed bitterly, loud enough for the row behind us to hear. Together in economy like broke teenagers. Great, real classy, babe. My stomach twisted. I felt every eye on us, even though most passengers pretended not to notice. I stared at the clouds outside, replaying every red flag I had ignored for years. The way he always complained about money when it was my salary paying the mortgage. The late nights he said were client dinners. The way he criticized my clothes, my car, my choices always making me feel like I wasn't enough. Tears slipped down my cheeks before I could stop them. I wiped them quickly, but he saw. Instead of comfort, he rolled his eyes. Now you're crying? Perfect. Make a scene so the whole plane feels sorry for you. You always do this, turn everything into a pity party. That was the moment something inside me cracked wide open. The pain wasn't just from his words anymore. It was the slow, sickening realization that the man I had built my life around didn't respect me. He never had. I had spent 5 years shrinking myself to fit his ego, paying for trips he complained about, loving him when he only loved how I made him look. I pulled my hand away and turned toward the window, breathing through the ache in my chest. The flight attendant passed by with drinks. I asked for water, my voice barely above a whisper. David ordered a whiskey and complained it wasn't premium enough. The attendant gave me a gentle, knowing look, but said nothing. Hours dragged by. The cabin grew quiet except for the low rumble of the engines. David kept checking his phone, texting someone with a small smile I hadn't seen in months. I felt so broken, so utterly alone in a plane full of people. Yet somewhere in that darkness, a quiet strength began to stir. I wasn't the problem. I had never been the problem. For the first time, I let myself feel angry instead of ashamed. I deserved better than this public humiliation. I deserved a love that didn't make me feel small. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, I won't let him destroy me. Little did I know, the universe was already preparing to prove me right. Asterisk mid-flight, somewhere over the Atlantic, the senior flight attendant came down the aisle with a warm smile. She stopped at our row, tray in hand, and her eyes landed on David. Her expression shifted from polite to surprised. Excuse me, sir. You look very familiar, weren't you? On our flight to Dubai 2 weeks ago? Business class, seat 3A. You were traveling with a young blonde woman. You two seemed very close. She had the window, you had the aisle. I served you champagne, remember? The words hung in the air like a THUND. David froze. His face went pale. I think you're mistaken, he stammered, voice suddenly small. The attendant tilted her head, calm but firm. No mistake, sir. I remember because you asked for extra blankets for her and called her darling the whole flight. And now, this is your wife? She looked at me with soft eyes full of pity and something like solidarity. Several passengers nearby had gone quiet, phones lowered. Ears turned our way. I felt the blood drain from my face, but this time it wasn't shame, it was clarity. The late nights, the secret smiles at his phone, the way he always needed space. It all crashed down at once. He had used our joint miles I earned on work, trips to fly business class with another woman while I sat home trusting him. Then here he was, shaming me for choosing economy on the trip I had paid for with my own savings. The attendant turned to me gently. Ma'am, we have a complimentary upgrade to business class available. Would you like to move? You've flown with us enough times to deserve it. I nodded, tears of relief mixing with the pain. As I stood, David reached for my arm, whispering desperately, Baby, please, it's not what it looks like. I pulled away without a word. The entire cabin watched as the attendant led me forward, past the curtain, into the wide, quiet seats of business class. I sank into the soft leather, champagne placed in my hand, and for the first time in hours, I breathed freely. Behind me, David stayed in economy, alone, exposed, the whispers spreading like wildfire. He tried texting me apologies the rest of the flight. I didn't reply. When we landed in Paris, I walked off that plane a different woman. I left him at baggage claim, with nothing but the truth between us. That night I booked a separate room, and by the time we flew home, divorce papers were already in motion. That day taught me something I will carry forever. Revenge doesn't always come from anger or plans. Sometimes it arrives quietly through the kind eyes of a stranger who simply tells the truth. Never let anyone shame you for the life you can afford or the love you choose to give. You are enough exactly as you are. True love lifts you up, it never drags you down to make itself look taller. I flew home in peace, heart still bruised, but finally free. And if you're listening to this and feeling small because of someone who should love you, know this, your upgrade is coming. You just have to believe you deserve it. I can still hear his voice echoing through the crowded airport gate, loud and sharp, making my world crumble in front of strangers. My name is Sophia, and this is the story of how the man I love turned one beautiful trip into my deepest heartbreak, and how the sky itself delivered justice I never saw coming. We had been together for 3 years. Alex was charming, ambitious, and always knew how to make me feel special, at least in private. I was the one who planned everything, who saved quietly, who believed that love meant creating memories together, not showing off. For our first international getaway to Italy, I used my bonus from work to book 2 tickets. Economy, yes, but comfortable enough for a long flight, with a window seat for him because he always loved watching the clouds dot at the boarding gate. The excitement in the air felt electric. Families laughed, couples held hands, and I stood there holding our passes, smiling at Alex like this was the start of something magical. I handed him his ticket gently. Window seat, just like you asked, babe. We're going to have the best time. His face twisted instantly. He looked at the boarding pass, then at me, and raised his voice so everyone nearby could hear. Economy? Seriously, Sophia? You're putting me in the back like some nobody? Do you know how this makes me look? My friends fly business? People are staring at us right now, thinking I can't afford better. This is embarrassing. My cheeks burned with heat, heads turned. A mother with a stroller paused. An older gentleman lowered his newspaper. I felt so small, so exposed under the bright terminal lights. Alex, please, I whispered, my voice trembling. It's not about the seats. It's about us going together. I saved for months so we could do this. But he didn't lower his voice. You always do this, make cheap choices and expect me to smile. If you really cared, you would have upgraded us. Now the whole gate thinks I'm with someone who doesn't understand what real standards are. Tears stung my eyes as we walked. Down the jet bridge, I followed him in silence, my heart shattered into pieces. How could the man who once promised me the world speak to me like that in public? I told myself it was just stress, just one bad moment before our romantic trip, but what I didn't know that day was that the real betrayal was waiting in the sky, and the people who would expose it were already on board. Asterisk, the plane doors closed, and we settled into our economy seats, me by the window, him in the middle. The engines roared to life, but the warmth between us had vanished. For the first hour, Alex barely spoke. Then the complaints started, each one heavier than the last. This seat is tiny. My legs are cramped. This is what you planned for our special trip? He muttered, shifting uncomfortably. I tried to stay calm, reaching for his hand. We're together, Alex. That's what matters most. He pulled away sharply. Together in the cheap section while everyone else looks comfortable? You're really okay with making me look small like this? His words cut deep. I stared out at the endless clouds, feeling the weight of every sacrifice I had made. I had covered most of the trip costs because his job was between opportunities. I had worked extra shifts, skipped buying new clothes for myself, all so we could create memories in Italy. Yet here he was, humiliating me again, this time trapped in a metal tube with nowhere to hide. Tears slipped down my face quietly. I wiped them away, but he noticed and sighed loudly. Great, now you're crying. Making a scene so the whole plane feels sorry for you? This is exactly why I get frustrated. You turn everything into drama. That moment broke something inside me. The pain wasn't just from his cruel words anymore. It was the slow, heartbreaking realization that I had been shrinking myself for years to protect his ego. The late nights, he said, were networking. The way he always criticized my choices while enjoying the comfort I provided. The smiles on his phone when he thought I wasn't looking. I sat there, heart heavy, feeling utterly alone, even though he was inches away. The flight attendant passed by offering drinks. Her eyes lingered on me for a second with quiet kindness as she handed me water. Alex ordered a drink and complained it wasn't strong enough. Hours passed in tense silence. The cabin lights dimmed. I closed my eyes, whispering to myself through the ache, I deserve better than this. I am not small. I am not embarrassing. In that darkness, something shifted. The hurt began turning into quiet strength. I realized I had given too much to someone who only took. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel not just sadness, but a deep, steady resolve. I wouldn't let his words define my worth. Not anymore, but what I didn't know was that the universe had been listening, and the flight crew had noticed everything. Asterisk mid-flight. As the cabin grew quiet, the senior flight attendant walked down the aisle with a professional smile. She stopped at our row, looked at Alex, and her expression changed to one of recognition. Excuse me, sir, she said politely but clearly, her voice carrying just enough for nearby rows to hear. Weren't you on our flight to Barcelona last month? Business class, seat 2D. You were with a young woman, dark hair, very affectionate. You kept calling her baby and asked for extra champagne. I remember because you two seemed so close. The words landed like thunder. Alex froze, his face turning pale. You must be mistaken, he stammered, voice suddenly weak. The attendant remained calm and professional. No mistake, sir. I served you both personally, and now. This is your girlfriend? She glanced at me with soft, understanding eyes. Several passengers had gone completely silent, listening intently. In that moment, everything clicked into place. The secret trips, the hidden messages, the way he always needed space. My heart shattered further, but this time the pieces felt like they were finally falling into truth instead of lies. The attendant turned to me gently. Ma'am, we have a complimentary upgrade to business class if you'd like to move forward. You deserve a peaceful flight after everything. I nodded, standing up with quiet dignity. Alex reached for my arm, whispering desperately, Sophia, wait, it's not what you think. I looked at him one last time and said softly, it never was it? As the crew escorted me through the curtain into the wide, comfortable business class seats, the entire cabin watched. I sank into the soft leather, a warm blanket around me, and breathed freely for the first time in hours. Behind me, Alex remained in economy, alone, exposed, surrounded by whispers and judgmental glances. He sent message after message during the rest of the flight. I didn't reply to a single one. When we landed, I walked off that plane a stronger woman. I ended things at the airport, booked my own hotel in Italy, and turned what was supposed to be our trip into my journey of healing. By the time I returned home, our relationship was over. That day taught me a powerful lesson I now carry. In my heart, never let anyone make you feel small for the love and effort you give. Your worth isn't measured by cabin class or someone else's ego. The right people will lift you up, not tear you down to feel bigger. If you're listening, and you've ever been shamed or betrayed by someone who should have cherished you, know this, your upgrade is coming. Sometimes justice arrives at 30,000 feet, delivered with grace and truth. You are enough. You always were. And the sky has a way of revealing what truly matters. Thank you for listening to my story. Here is the complete narration script for your YouTube video, written in a dramatic, emotional, cinematic female narration style. Total word count, approximately 1,380 words. Perfect for a 6 to 8 minute video. Title, he said, this is all you can handle. Then the entire cabin turned ditcho okay, beginning 462 words I. Still remember the exact words that shattered my heart at 35,000 feet. His voice rang through the cabin, like a slap I never saw coming. My name is Elena, and this is the story of how the man I loved turned our special vacation into my greatest humiliation, and how a plane full of strangers became my unexpected strength. We had been together for 4 years. Daniel was the type of man everyone admired, confident, successful in his corporate job, always talking about the life we would build together. I was the quiet one who made things happen. I worked long hours as a teacher, saved every extra penny, and planned our dream trip to Greece with so much love in my heart. I wanted to give us a beautiful escape, something we would remember forever. At the airport, I was glowing with excitement. I had managed to book 2 seats in premium economy, the best I could comfortably afford after covering most of the trip. Costs. As we stood at the gate, I handed him his boarding pass with a hopeful smile. I got us the extra legroom seats, Daniel. It's going to be perfect. He looked at the pass, then at me, and let out a loud, mocking laugh that made heads turn. Premium economy, this is all you can handle? His voice carried across the waiting area. Come on, Elena, my colleagues fly business. This is what you think I deserve? You're really okay dragging me down to this level? It's embarrassing. My face burned with shame. Strangers glanced our way. A young couple nearby stopped talking. I felt so small, so exposed under the bright lights. Daniel, please, I whispered, my voice breaking. I worked so hard for this trip. I thought we were going together because we love each other. But he shook his head, still loud enough for everyone to hear. Love doesn't mean settling. For less, if you really cared about us, you would have found a way to do better. This just shows what you're capable of. Those words cut deeper than anything he had ever said before. I followed him onto the plane in silence, my chest tight with pain. As we took our seats, I kept telling myself it was just one bad moment, that things would get better once. We were in the air, but what I didn't know that day was that his cruel words were only the beginning, and the entire cabin was about to witness the truth. Asterisk, the plane took off smoothly, but the atmosphere between us grew colder with every passing minute. Daniel kept shifting in his seat, sighing loudly. Then the comments started again, each one heavier than the last. These seats are still so tight, he muttered. This is really the best you could do? This is all you can handle for the man you supposedly love? I tried to keep my voice steady. Daniel, we're on our way to Greece. Can we please just enjoy being together? He turned to me with a look of disappointment that made my stomach twist. Enjoy? How am I supposed to enjoy feeling like I settled? You always do this, Elena. You plan these average things and expect me to be grateful. It makes me look weak in front of people. Tears filled my eyes. I stared straight ahead, feeling every passenger around us pretending not to listen. The pain wasn't just from his words anymore. It was the crushing realization that I had spent 4 years pouring everything into a relationship where I was never enough. I had sacrificed vacations, new clothes, even my own comfort, just to make him happy. Yet here he was, publicly tearing me down for trying my best. The flight attendant came by with the drink service. I asked for water, my voice barely a whisper. Daniel ordered a drink and complained that it wasn't the premium brand he preferred. The attendant gave me a gentle, sympathetic glance before moving on. Hours passed in heavy silence. I sat there with my heart broken, replaying every moment I had ignored the red flags, the way he always compared me to his friends' partners, the late nights he claimed were work, the constant criticism wrapped in, I just want the best for us. In that quiet pain, something inside me began to shift. The hurt slowly turned into quiet clarity. I realized I had been shrinking myself for years to fit into his version of success. I deserved to be loved for who I was, not shamed for what I could afford. For the first time, I felt a spark of strength growing beneath the heartbreak. I whispered to myself, I am enough. I don't need to prove my worth to anyone. Little did I know, the universe was preparing to show me and everyone else on that plane just how true that was. Asterisk mid-flight. As the cabin lights dimmed, the senior flight attendant walked down the aisle. She stopped at our row and looked directly at Daniel. Her voice was calm but clear enough for nearby passengers to hear. Excuse me, sir. Weren't you on our flight to Dubai 2 months ago? You were in business class, seat 4A. You were traveling with a woman, tall, elegant, very affectionate. You kept calling her my love and asked for the full champagne service. I remember because you two seemed so happy together. The entire cabin seemed to hold its breath. Daniel's face went completely pale. That wasn't me, he stammered, his confident voice suddenly small and shaky. The attendant remained professional. I'm quite sure it was you, sir. And now you're here with your girlfriend in premium economy, telling her this is all she can handle? Whispers spread through the rows. Several passengers turned to look. The truth hung heavy in the air. My heart shattered one final time, but this time it was mixed with relief. All the pieces finally fit. The secret trips, the mysterious expenses, the emotional distance. He had been living one life with me and another behind my back. The attendant turned to me with kind eyes. Ma'am, we actually have 2 complimentary seats available in business class. Would you like to move forward for the rest of the flight? You deserve comfort and peace. I nodded quietly and stood up. As I gathered my things, Daniel reached for my arm, whispering desperately, Elena, please, don't do this. I looked at him one last time and said softly, you already did. The crew escorted me to the front of the plane. I sank into the wide business class seat, wrapped in a soft blanket, feeling the weight lift from my chest. Behind me, Daniel stayed in premium economy, alone, exposed. With the entire cabin now aware of who he truly was, he sent apology messages the rest of the flight. I never replied when we landed. I ended the relationship at the airport. I continued my trip to Greece alone, turning pain into healing and discovery. That flight taught me something I will never forget. Never let anyone make you feel small for the love and effort you give. Your worth is not measured by seats or money. It is measured by the kindness and strength in your heart. Sometimes justice doesn't need loud words. Sometimes it comes quietly through truth spoken at 35,000 feet while the whole world watches. You are always enough. The right person will see your value without ever making you prove it. And if you're listening today and carrying similar pain, know that your cabin is about to turn too. You deserve to fly first class in life, starting with how you treat yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. I stood backstage, heart pounding, moments away from stepping onto the biggest stage of my life, when my own brother's words echoed in my head like a slap. You're nothing but garbage. You'll embarrass us all. My name is Elena, and growing up, I was always the quiet one in a loud, ambitious family. My father was a successful businessman, my mother a respected community leader, and my older brother, Marcus, was the golden child, captain of every team, top of his class, and now a rising political star. I was the dreamer, the one who spent hours writing speeches no one would hear and volunteering for causes that made my family roll their eyes. While Marcus chased spotlight and power, I quietly built my own path in public advocacy. Years of hard work led to this moment. I had been invited to speak at a major national women's leadership summit, the kind of event that could open doors I had only dreamed of. The night before the event, Our family gathered for dinner to celebrate. I was so excited. I could barely eat. When I shared the news, my brother leaned back in his chair with that familiar smirk and said loudly, "Come on, Elena, you. Speaking on a national stage, you're garbage compared to what I do every day. You'll freeze up there and embarrass the whole family. Just stay in your little volunteer world." My parents laughed it off as brother-sister teasing, but the words cut deep. I forced a smile and changed the subject, yet inside I felt shattered. The person who was supposed to cheer for me had just torn me down in front of everyone. I went home that night wondering if he was right. Maybe I didn't belong on that stage. Maybe I was just garbage. But what I didn't know was that the very next day, everything would change in the most unforgettable way. The morning of the summit arrived bright and clear. I arrived early, rehearsing my speech in my head, still hearing Marcus's voice mocking me. I tried to push the doubt away, but it clung to me like shadows. Backstage, the energy was electric. Powerful women from across the country were preparing to speak. I felt small and out of place, especially after my brother's words. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "Don't mess this up and make us look bad. Garbage belongs in the trash, not on stage." That message broke something inside me. Tears stung my eyes as I stood there in my carefully chosen outfit, feeling completely alone. My own brother, the one who should have been my biggest supporter, had called me worthless. Not once, but twice. And my parents had done nothing to stop him. They had always favored him, always made excuses. That's just how Marcus is. He's under pressure. In that moment, the betrayal hit me fully. I realized I had spent years shrinking myself so Marcus could shine brighter. I had celebrated his every success while quietly setting aside my own dreams to keep the family peace. Now, on the most important day of my career, he was trying to destroy my confidence completely. I was seconds away from texting the organizers that I couldn't speak when a calm voice inside me whispered, "No more." The pain was crushing, but beneath it, a quiet fire began to burn. I wasn't garbage. I had earned this moment through years of dedication and heart. Marcus's words didn't define me. My work did. I wiped my tears, straightened my shoulders, and whispered to myself, "This is my time." I stepped toward the stage entrance, ready to face whatever came. But I had no idea that help was already moving silently through the venue, and that my brother's cruel words were about to be exposed in front of the entire audience. Asterisk. Just as I reached the curtain, the head organizer rushed over, looking flustered but excited. "Elena, there's been a last-minute change in the program. The keynote speaker had an emergency, and the committee chose you to deliver the closing address instead. You'll be speaking right before the vice president." My heart stopped. This was huge, far beyond my original slot. Before I could process it, security personnel appeared and gently guided me forward. Then I saw them, 4 Secret Service agents in crisp suits, earpieces in place, moving with quiet authority. They cleared a direct path through the bustling backstage area, creating space so I could walk straight to the podium without delay. One of them even gave me a respectful nod and said, "Ma'am, we've got you. Take your time." The audience fell into a hush as I stepped onto the stage under bright lights. From the front row, I suddenly spotted my family. They had surprised me by coming. Me to fail. I took a deep breath and began my speech. My voice started soft but grew stronger with every word. I spoke about rising above doubt, about the power of quiet persistence, and about never letting anyone dim your light. The audience was captivated. Vice President herself approached me on stage, shaking my hand warmly in front of everyone. Cameras flashed. The Secret Service agents stood respectfully nearby, their presence adding undeniable weight to the moment. My speech had been so moving that organizers later told me it was one of the most impactful of the day. From the audience, I saw Marcus's face turn pale. His smug expression shattered as he realized the garbage sister he had mocked was now being honored by one of the highest offices in the country, with Secret Service clearing her path. Later that evening, my family gathered backstage. Marcus tried to brush it off with a weak good job, but the damage was done. My parents finally saw the contrast. While he had belittled me, the world had lifted me up. The truth was exposed without a single shout, just quiet, undeniable. Success stopped. Marcus never called me garbage again. Our relationship is distant now, but I no longer carry his words in my heart. That day taught me a powerful lesson. Never let anyone, especially family, define your worth with their cruel words. You are not garbage. You are not small. Your voice, your dreams, and your light matter. When someone tries to push you down, keep rising. The right doors will open, sometimes with Secret Service clearing the way to anyone listening who has been called worthless by the people who should love them most. Your story is not over. Your moment is coming. Stand tall, speak your truth, and let your success be the only response you need. I'm Elena, and I finally stepped into my light. Thank you for walking this journey with me. If my story touched you, please share it with someone who feels dimmed by others. What's one hurtful label someone placed on you that you're ready to release? Tell me in the comments. Your voice deserves to be heard. I was only 7 years old when my mother looked me straight in the eyes and said the words that would haunt me for the rest of my life. Stay here. Don't make a sound. Mommy will be right back. She kissed my forehead, locked the door of that small, dark motel room, and walked away. I waited. Hours turned into days. The food she left ran out. The water in the bottle grew warm. I cried until my voice disappeared. I was alone, terrified, and slowly starving in a city I didn't know. My own mother had left me for dead. My name is Elena, and for 23 years I believed I was worthless, the child nobody wanted. I grew up in foster homes, moving from one house to another, always feeling like an unwanted burden. I kept my head down, worked hard, and tried to build a quiet life for myself. I became a teacher, found a small apartment, and learned to smile even when my heart felt empty, that deep inside. The little girl who waited in that motel room never stopped asking one question. Why did she leave me? What I didn't know was that my mother hadn't just abandoned me. She had hidden a much bigger secret, one that involved power, danger, and a world I could never have imagined. Until the day everything changed. Last month, I received a letter from a law firm I had never heard of. It said I needed to appear at a government building in Washington, D.C. for an important matter regarding my biological mother. My hands shook as I read it. After all these years, she was reaching out, or was this just another way to hurt me again? I almost didn't go. The pain of being abandoned had shaped every part of me. I was scared that seeing her would break me completely, but something inside whispered that I deserved answers. So I bought a ticket and went. When I arrived at the massive federal building, 2 men in dark suits were waiting for me at the entrance. They didn't smile. One of them said softly, "Miss Elena Ramirez, please come with us." They escorted me through security without the usual long lines. My heart was pounding. I thought maybe my mother was in trouble and needed me. Or perhaps she was dying and wanted forgiveness. They took me through corridors I could never have entered on my own. Then we reached a set of heavy gates. That's when I saw them, Secret Service agents. Real ones with earpieces and serious faces. They nodded at my escorts and opened the gates for me. I was led into a quiet, elegant room, and there she was, my mother. Older now, but still beautiful in that cold, distant way I remembered. She wasn't alone. A high-ranking government official sat beside her. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered, "Elena, I never stopped thinking about you." But what she said next shattered me in a completely different way. She had been working undercover for the government, a dangerous operation against a powerful criminal network. When things got too risky, her handlers made a choice. They told her to disappear and leave no loose ends. I was the loose end. They convinced her that keeping me with her would get both of us killed. So she left me in that motel with a promise to come back once it was safe. She never came back. The operation dragged on for years. She was told I had been placed in a good home. She was told it was better this way. She believed them, or maybe she chose to believe them because the guilt was too heavy. I sat there feeling completely exposed. The woman who was supposed to protect me had chosen her mission over her own daughter. The betrayal cut deeper than abandonment ever could. I had spent my whole life feeling unloved and worthless, while she lived in a world of secrets and protection. Tears streamed down my face as years of pain poured out. "You left me to die," I said, my voice breaking. I was 7. "I waited for you every single day." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. The pain was overwhelming. Yet somewhere in that storm of emotions, a quiet strength began to rise inside me. I was no longer the helpless little girl. I was a woman who had survived. Asterisk, the Secret Service agent stood respectfully at the door as my mother continued. She told me she had left the agency years ago. The guilt had finally become unbearable. She had spent the last few years searching for me, fighting through bureaucracy until she found where I was living. She had asked them to bring me here safely. One last request from someone who had once served her country, but I didn't feel pity. Not yet. I looked at her and said calmly, "You chose your secrets over me. You let me believe I was nothing. Now I'm going to choose myself." I stood up. The agents escorted me back through those same gates, but this time I walked with my head high. My mother called after me, her voice full of regret. But I didn't turn around. In the weeks that followed, I made my own choices. I accepted a generous settlement the government quietly offered as acknowledgement of what happened. I used part of it to start a foundation that helps abandoned and foster children feel seen and valued. I began speaking about my story, not for revenge, but so no other child would feel as invisible as I once did. My mother tried to reach out many times. Letters, calls, even flowers. Each time I felt the old pain rise, but I also felt stronger. I finally wrote her one letter. "You left me for dead in that room, but I didn't die. I survived. And I forgave you. Not for you, but for the little girl inside me who deserved peace. Today I stand tall." The same Secret Service that once helped hide the truth later escorted me through those gates so I could finally face it. Life has a strange way of bringing justice, not always loud and dramatic, but quiet and lasting. If there is one thing this painful journey taught me, it is this: even when the person who is supposed to love you the most leaves you behind, you still have the power to rise. You can turn your deepest wounds into your greatest strength. Never let someone else's choice define your worth. I am Elena. I was left behind, but I was never truly lost. And now I am finally free.